Hi, I'm Michele Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Hi, and welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. And this time I have somebody who, for a long time, I thought maybe I really did want her job. And I now am very comfortable in the fact that no, I do not. But I am fascinated to talk to her more about it. We have the fantastic Kim Dalton with us of Dalton Wise Consulting. Kim, first question, what is your job title?
My job title is I'm a psychotherapist. That's my official job title. I tend to go by therapeutic coach.
Okay. Okay. That feels like a splitting of hairs. Why is that hair important?
Because just due to my longer term career background, I did a lot more coaching. And so I actually find that working with the clients that I work with, merging the psychotherapeutic model with a coaching model actually provides better outcomes.
And so just full disclosure to our listeners, you are actually the reason that I am a qualified career coach. It's all your fault. So for all of my clients out there, you now know where to send both love letters and hate mail. Kim Rutherford, Dalton is the person. I've known Kim for, at this point, almost 20 years, which is insane to think about, just for the record.
Long time.
And she used to be Rutherford, and she is now Dalton. So I may slip at some point, and that's all on me.
Well, to be honest, I'm a bit mixed. So I tend to go by Rutherford a lot. And then some people call me Dalton. So really, because I never really, it's a name, it's a word. You call me what you want.
I feel like you being a bit mixed up about basics like your name is really on brand for you, Kim. That it could be any of the above, all of the above.
Don't label me by a name. If Cher can have one, I'm having just one. Just go with Kim, it's fine.
Kim. Noted. So what do you do all day these days?
It's a mixed at the moment, obviously with lockdown. So I do a mixture of consultancy, supporting big organizations with regards to wellness and wellbeing in their workplaces. I do one-to-one work with private clients to support with mental health recovery and mental health prevention. And then I look after my own business. So I've got a finger in a few pies.
More than a few, from what I know. So I have to ask the really gauche question that we ask absolutely everybody. How do you answer when people ask you, how much do you make? We don't expect a number. Just how do you answer that?
It's never enough. It's one of those things. It comes down to what is that wealth. And I think because I am always trying to strive to be the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, wherever I am today is never enough for where I want to be tomorrow. So I'm never earning enough. And it's generally not about, can I have the money for the bling? It's about, can I have the stable foundation to do the things I want to do?
Absolutely. And, in the UK, anything bigger than a postage stamp to live in costs at least £5 million. So I feel like you definitely, more and more is always required just for a little bit of comfort. So I understand entirely. So I want to start with the part that I find the most exciting about what you're doing right now, which is the working with companies on their wellness initiatives. You and I have both worked for some of the same companies and for some very different companies. And we are both very aware that there's a lot of virtue signaling in this, like, oh, we really care about your mental health and your life. And we really don't want our employees burn out. And then it just like, that's it. Like they say those words. Sometimes they even have somebody in like a glorified position, but that would be it. Like no actual initiative. So I know that particularly in the UK, there's been a lot of press about normalization of mental health issues, and that the princes are both really active in that front. So talk to me a little bit. Is that needle moving? Are things changing, and their companies are actually wanting to get involved? And if so, what does that look like?
Is the needle changing? I suppose you could argue that mental health terminology is more common language now. And so where we're probably in a situation where people wouldn't talk about mental health, they wouldn't understand the mental health terminology, that's everywhere. Is the needle changing with regards to the stigma? Maybe a little bit. I'm not seeing a great deal of change to the stigma, but we are finding that more people are willing to learn and people are willing to understand, and there is a softening with regards to that approach. With regards to the corporates, you are spot on. I mean, there is still those wonderful lip service companies that tick the boxes, and especially those now it's involved in, you know, especially if you're a bid company, so surviving on putting in bids for different contracts, most of those contracts now want to know what your well-being in the workplace agenda is in order to be able to win those contracts, so, which is fantastic. But it's all about the approach to it. For me, you can always tell when an organization is just doing it for lip service. If they're going in from a bottom-up approach and all of the training and everything is just for frontline staff, you know that's just for lip service. If an organization is going, no, let's get the senior level team in first, let's get the leadership teams in first, and then let's filter it down and genuinely change culture, then you know you've got an organization that really is sticking by what it says. And the great thing is, from my perspective, I'm seeing more of those types of organizations come through.
That is really encouraging, because I know forever, you know, being progressive on mental health meant that you allowed employees a duvet day on occasion. And like, that was literally, you know, as rogue as anybody went. What are some of the most exciting things that you've seen companies embracing lately around mental health and well-being?
I think especially now, because it feels like we've been in lockdown for 12 months. So I think there's a lot more. So I've just spent pretty much the last 6 months doing a lot more training, where it's free training, free access, and it's lunchtime hours of wellness and well-being. It's bringing in, you know, there's a lot of organizations that will bring in the desk masseuses, which is lovely, and all of that kind of stuff. I've got a client who brings in puppies because puppies are fantastic for
stress. Work for puppy company? Oh my God, that's great.
All of these types of things. But ultimately, from my perspective, the ones that are the best are the ones that contact me from a private clinical perspective, who are saying, actually, we've got these members of staff who are really struggling at the moment. I don't want them to wait for a period of time until they can get free access. I would rather pay for them to come and see you privately, and let's deal with this sooner rather than later. And I think a lot of the organizations who have genuinely experienced staff who have committed suicide have definitely started to think a bit more with regards to how can we support our staff quicker, rather than having to deal with the after effects of the worst case scenarios.
Well, I'm glad that the needles are moving. I think for me, like from a mental health perspective, I think not only right now are we dealing with the lockdown and not seeing people and all of that, but then we're also dealing with so many people are out of work. And then just the loss, like so many people have lost friends and families from the pandemic, and there's not the normal outlets for that. So I know, like my husband's employee who's in the UK, lost his father-in-law to COVID, and they said that basically they won't return any of the personal property that he went to the hospital with, because all of it is considered to be contaminated and it will all be destroyed. So there are things like he was wearing a ring that was a family heirloom and they can't get it back. And they don't have all of the normal ways that they would grieve as a family because of that. So I feel like now, probably at this moment more than ever, we need that kind of mental health. So that makes me feel better that companies are doing something about it. How are the employees? Like, when you get called in, are they like, oh, thank God that Calvary is here? Or are they freaked out and worried? Like, am I going to lose my job because you're here? What is the vibe?
It's a good mixture. It's a good mixture. I was working for a very, very big organization in the UK, and the vibe there was very much of, are you here as a spy? That concept of, do you really keep all of this information to yourself? Do you share it? Does it go on my record? They really did think that it was all going to go back to probably their HR team, and then that gets filtered into their management.
I would worry about that, honestly. Yeah. Like, I'm a huge proponent for mental health stuff, and I would be like, no, I definitely don't need any help. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm feeling just fine. Thank you. I never want to talk to anybody. Why would I not be a happy and loyal employee? So I feel that 1,000%.
On the other side, I have people come and see me through their employer who've already been paying to see someone, and they've been seeing another therapist for ages, but never told anybody about it. I mean, there's so many people who genuinely do that whole suffering in silence out of fear of what other people would think. But then there's also a lot of people who are suffering in silence because they don't understand that they are experiencing mental health issues, and they would be petrified if that's what they realized they were having. So a lot of the job that I do is really trying to get people to understand that we all have mental health. It's just like we all have physical health. And just like with physical health, sometimes you get the common cold, and that means on that day you have poor physical health. And sometimes you're going to experience a day of anxiety, and that's poor mental health. It doesn't mean you're living like that forever. So the stigma for me, it's really just about getting people to understand health in general, both mentally and physically, and then looking after yourself both mentally and physically. For me, if you're willing to pay to go to a gym to look after your body, then it would be smart to pay to go and see a therapist to look after your mind, and then you'll get a nice holistic approach to your long-term mental and physical health.
I absolutely love that analogy, because that's kind of how we approach it. We have, on both sides of our family, we have major mental health issues. So my husband has clinical depression and sees a therapist and takes medication for it and all that sort of thing. We have borderline personality disorder on my side, addiction on both sides. So we've really set my kids up for a lot of extreme health. They're so blessed on that front. But so we're really adamant that we have a really open and honest conversation about all of that stuff all the time with our kids, because in the exact same way that if they have a stomach ache, if they have a sore throat, I need them to tell me so that I can make the appropriate health choice as a mom. Do we go to a doctor? Do I just give you Tylenol? Do I tell you to quit whining, etc.? I need the same thing from a mental health perspective with them. And I need them to grow up knowing that, hey man, like sometimes we have to go to the doctor for help with strep throat or something else. Sometimes we have to go to the doctor because we need help with mental health issues, and they're all exactly the same level of fine and non-judgmental. I know that that's how my kids are being raised, and I know that in my little bubble, that's how all of the other people are raising their kids. But you have a very different angle. Like, is my bubble reality, do you think? Or do you think that even the next generation is still being raised with stigma?
I think the education system is trying to change. They're bringing a lot more now in with regards to mental health and mindfulness, and teaching children from a very young age how to manage your emotions so that they don't become too overwhelming for you. So I think that's very helpful. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and I don't think we can really blame parents because they were never educated. And so we're in a situation where it's a cultural change. It's a complete cultural shift with regards to it. I mean, my mum suffered with her mental health, and I can remember being a child and observing how the world completely treated her terribly because of it. I remember employers treating her terribly, her own doctor giving information out when they shouldn't have. And that's only where we're talking 25, 30 years ago. That's a very small period of time to expect dramatic change. So we have taken big leaps, and without a doubt, it has helped. It has helped that the princes have helped an awful lot with the charities that they've set up, and they're very vocal. Specifically, I mean, Harry's been extremely vocal, and he's now vocal globally, so that's fantastic. But we've also got a situation where we've got big, and you guys have it over there, but it's the big celebrity element to it as well.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that all of these people have experienced it in some way. But the problem we've got is because of the celebrity world and the Instagram world, people don't trust that as much. So whereas everybody's aware of the language, they understand anxiety and depression, there's also people who think it's just become the snowflake, the woke world, the world of which it's just people having a whinge and a moan for having a normal life, and that then waters down the brilliant agenda that's been happening. So it's a crazy time with it all.
I think it's interesting. And one of the things that I have recently, I think I knew intellectually, but I hadn't internalized. A friend of mine on the Facebook, which obviously is where all good news comes from, is your friends on Facebook. obviously. But she has mental health issues and she's super vocal about those. Not in a like whingy way, but like in a, hey, here are facts and things that I'm going through. And if that helps you, kind of really amazing way. And one of the things that she was talking about was that it took her a really long time to get diagnosed with depression, even when she was at her darkest, because her depression doesn't look like sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Her depression looks like being a raging bitch at everybody and having just like all out of fucks all the time, you know, and like not being able to handle, like just flying off the handle about every little thing, etc. And again, I think I intellectually knew that that was one of the guises that that depression can take, but I totally had not internalized it until her post, because also she's like the kindest, nicest human being ever. And so what, thinking of her behaving more like me seems totally crazy. But so that's a big one for me. What are some of the other things that you encounter that people are blind spots like that they don't realize about mental health and that are like myths or what have you, that you have to constantly be like, hey, actually, that's the thing.
For me, it's always understanding where one of the biggest triggers are. So stress, for example, doesn't fall under a mental health umbrella. When stress becomes dysfunctional, then it starts to. And so that for me is one of the biggest telltales. And I work with a lot of people who are senior managers, CEOs, leadership, that kind of arena is a lot where my clients are. So highly stressful jobs. And for them, that whole concept of stress is normal. In fact, almost it's that competitiveness of who is the most stressed. Fantastic if that's helping you and you're staying within the right bracket of stress. But the second you move into dysfunctional stress and you're not sleeping, that's the number one question for me is, are you sleeping? If your sleep pattern, or you're waking up in the middle of the night, or you're struggling, or you're not getting good quality sleep, that is telling you that you are not functioning properly. That is telling you there's a problem there. And so it's these small little things that are telling us huge things, and it's the prevention, it's understanding those things so you can prevent the rest of it from coming.
I'm so sorry that I'm chuckling. It's just because as a mother of small children, I haven't slept in 4 years. and so like I'm chuckling because I hear this from my doctor. So every time, I think a while back I went to my doctor about I have fibromyalgia, and to talk about that. And he was like, great, we should put you on a sleep study. And I was like, oh my God, 8 hours of sleep sounds amazing. Sign me up tomorrow. And he was like, let's talk about your sleep. And instead of getting help with fibro, I walked out with a diagnosis of extreme sleep deprivation. And I forget, it's like a medical sleep deprivation thing. And he was like, you have to get 6 hours of contiguous sleep every night. He was like, and when you have achieved that for 30 days, then I can actually see if and what else is wrong with you. Because as long as you are in extreme sleep deprivation, like that's what's wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly it. This is the big one, and it's same with diagnosing depression. It's a case of, it's like diagnosing any mental health condition is really difficult because you have to rely so heavily on somebody else explaining to you how they feel. It's not like we can stick you in an X-ray machine and go, oh yes, you've got depression. Doesn't work that way.
Blood test, it'd be great.
But it just doesn't work. So we have to rely so heavily on the information provided by the client in my case. And if that client isn't functioning properly and they can't even talk properly, they can't find their words properly to explain how they feel, it makes the process incredibly difficult for myself, for a GP, or even mental health clinicians and crisis teams. So sleep is absolutely crucial. And yes, I meet many a parent who say, sleep, that's for other people. But the truth of it is not just about can you get enough sleep, it's also about the quality of the sleep. Yeah. Now, for example, there's lots of parents like yourself who, but if you went to sleep right now, you'd conk out quite nicely and you'd sleep quite easily for as long as you needed to. But if there is a parent who's trying to get to sleep and still struggling to get to sleep, even though they're exhausted, that's telling you there's probably something else going on as well. So yeah, for me, it's sleep pattern is one of the crucial ones straight away. Tells us a lot.
Yeah. I feel that, like I said, for all the parents listening to this, message Kim about how to get around it, because and also later offline you can tell me how to get sleep, because I know what we've tried and I know what has not worked. Oh my days. 4 o'clock in the morning. Mommy, I had a bad dream. Okay, buddy, that's fine. Mommy, there's a dragon in my room. Buddy, that's your stuffed dragon that you took into your room. I think you're fine. Like, oh my days. Oh, I can't even tell you. So yeah, if I will be happy to sign up for any magic pills, or not literal pills, but like, recommendations, magic bullets that you have. I'm in.
But the other side of that is that ability to not switch off the brain, but almost take a step back from the brain, that headspace concept, that mindfulness concept. And it's that almost, are you able to relax every organ, including your own brain, and then the mind element of the brain as well. So it's relaxation, it's giving yourself the opportunity to reset and reboot. That's what we need to do. Even if you're the oldest computer in the world, you still need to rest and reboot.
I do feel like a particularly old computer right now. I'm not going to lie. I probably need to be defragged pretty badly. Like, I think just everything is, it's crazy. I am all out of disk space at this point. So I want to kind of zig a little bit. I deal with people who looking for work or are in work, looking for change, etc., all in the career space. You have all of the experience in that space as well. One of the things that I work a lot with my clients on, and I'm not a mental health provider, is the fact that job searching is an exercise in extreme rejection. You're going to be rejected thousands of times in 1,000 ways before you get a single yes. And that requires some mental health planning around that. And so I always, like, my recommendations are, you need to know your own mental health. You need to have plans in place and check-ins in place. But that's kind of where my expertise stops. Your expertise can next step from that. What, for people going through that, what are the best practices, things that they need to be doing to protect themselves and insulate against that rejection?
The issue with rejection is what it does is it triggers the self-esteem element. So it starts to lower our self-esteem. So actually what we need to do is counteract that. And I go down the route of evidence-based stuff all the time. So every single time you get a rejection, you have to go to the different part of your mind and remind yourself and pull up all the evidence of when you've been successful in the past, and you counteract it. The way that the brain holds on to things is through emotion. So if you have a really strong emotional reaction to something, it will hold on to that memory in the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain we use for recalling information. And so the next time you feel rejection, it'll bring that memory up again, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, which then makes the self-esteem lower and lower and lower. So if you can react, have your moment, go, yeah, whatever, however you want to react to it, do what you've got to do, but don't lull in it, because if you lull in it, you strengthen the emotion, so it stays there for longer and it affects the self-esteem. So it's a case of, yeah, okay, yeah, it's pretty crappy, you didn't get what you wanted, but where is the evidence that you will be successful? When have you been successful beforehand? How long did those successes take? Right, get your head back in the game, move on to the next one. Don't linger on that one rejection. You're obviously going to have a lifetime of rejections. That's the wonder of the world. But it's not allowing the emotion to stay so strongly connected to it that it actually becomes a part of us and affects our self-esteem. It's counteract it, move on.
So, I mean, I guess with that, I always recommend, like, look at the statistics, right? Like, we know that you're going to need to apply for like 400 to 500 positions before you're going to be successful. Like, those are big gross averages across industry, blah, blah, blah. But if you kind of keep your eye there, like, okay, I got 3 today. Well, that's 3 closer to the 400 before the yes is that kind of a practical way of doing part of what you're saying there is a terrible advice. Like,
it's not, it's the
sometimes
reality.
I give bad advice, Kim, it's happened.
No, it's good advice. It is. It's that reality. It's putting them firmly back into the world of reality. And the reality is, we used to always say it, it's one CV in 1,000. Bob is going to read your CV. Your CV is going to spend 17 seconds reading your CV. You're not that important to him. This is more important to you than it is to him. So you have to learn to disconnect the emotion from the situation. It's black and white for someone else, so make it black and white for you. Yep, you didn't get that one, but it just means that you're now available for when the next one does happen. And it will happen. It absolutely will happen. It won't happen if you go into that negative mindset, because the second you do that, that's what you portray when you do if you're lucky enough to get to interview. And nobody wants to hire that person with no confidence and a bit moody, etc., etc.
And that's a huge part of what I deal with when I'm helping people like coaching for interview is, man, by the time they get there, like they've been beaten down and they're not happy, and that comes across in everything. Or people who left their last employer through a negative circumstance on either side, right? Like they got pissed off and walked out, or the employer got pissed off and fired them, whatever. Like when they have that big chip on their shoulder and they walk into the interview, they take that chip with them. Nobody's going to hire them. Like that's really, really, and so helping people work past that, look past that, and be something that's hireable despite having that is really hard. My work around that is just helping them find answers that don't remind them of all the negativity. Does that make sense? So like, rather than saying, people always want to get into way too much detail. Don't stop with the detail. Why did you leave? Because I'd been there for a while and the time had come for me to find some new opportunities. Done. You don't need to say, because I got mad at my manager and stormed out. Like that part is not as relevant to the conversation as I needed a new opportunity.
And this is a classic example of when you're too connected to the emotion of that situation. Yeah. And it hurt you, but no one else other than you cares. And I wish that wasn't necessarily the way, and I wish people cared as much as you do. But they don't. And Bob, who's interviewing you, and you're the 7th person he's just seen in a day, he doesn't care. What he cares about is, I've got a tick sheet here. Do you match my tick sheet? Because then I don't have to interview anybody else. That's the reality of recruitment.
Yeah.
If you can get your head in the reality, it's a game. If you can get your head in the reality of the game, all that other stuff still exists, but it's your stuff to work through in a different place. That employer, all they need to really know is, can you tick those boxes for them? And if you can, you are a shoo-in for the job.
For me, like I find that the place that rears its head the most is on the, why did you leave your last employer? Everybody wants to tell me their damn life story. Or the star answers to the, tell me about a time when, oh my sweet days, when they want to wax on about every detail of what the task was. Well, you see, we had a team of blah and we were implementing a such and so solution. I don't care. I really just, and so like what I always tell them is like, you get 20 seconds for every answer. If you were talking for more than 20 seconds, they have stopped caring. If you feel like you have more than 20 seconds worth of something that they want to hear, get to the end and be like, can I tell you more about whatever? And every client I have ever had that did that and went into an interview, every single one has come back to me and said, I kept asking, would you like more information about this? And they always said no.
They'll prompt you. They will ask for more. And it's remembering these people know all the great terminology. You don't need to explain to them what admin is. They know what admin means. Saying 80% of my day is general admin duties, they know what that means. And if they want to know more, they'll say, oh, explain to me a bit more about that. They know.
Preach. So, like my resume clients, I keep getting people who have like these like 9-page CVs, right? And they literally have a page of just their job duties as a software developer. I'm like, friend, as soon as you said Python developer, they knew what you did. Like, you didn't need to tell them that meant that you wrote code or attended Scrum meetings. They knew.
And they'll never understand that. That's why they're hiring a specialist.
Well, but like I just like they know what that is. Don't waste all of that time and space and brain power for everybody involved talking about stuff that they don't get. Like
No,
they
it's that
already
classic.
know. Oh,
You've got to think about what these things are. They are all marketing processes. Your CV is just a marketing document. Think about when you read a post or a leaflet, how much information, if it doesn't give you the headline, you're not interested. The rest of the detail, you look at the pictures and you look at the price. That's what we look for. We look for the quick information. When we're interviewing people, it's like watching our favorite person in an interview, being interviewed on TV. You want the scandal, you want the information, you want the good stuff. You don't care about how people got to work every day. You care about, actually, within the 6 years I worked somewhere, these were my core achievements. Because that's what's different to everybody else that they're going to see that day. You might have been a general administrator, but you might have had some really core achievements being an administrator, 5 different contracts, 5 different projects. That's what you did when you worked for your previous employer. And it is, how do you stand out from the crowd? How are you marketing yourself? How are you that commodity that you're trying to sell to them? Because ultimately, that's what you are to them.
I mean, you do hear the ultimate irony that you and I are sitting here waxing lyrical with all this great advice about interviews, and both of us have put ourselves in a professional position that we never have to interview again, right?
Because we hated it. And the worst thing about coming from a career and a career background in any way, shape or form, you know the system so well that when you're experiencing it, you see the flaws in it and you just absolutely lose faith in it. But I genuinely believe that if there's so many ways to get a job. I mean, I've interviewed for a job that I never got, and then somebody's come and spoke to me ages after that and said, oh, would you be interested in coming and doing some work for us on this? So you never know where each interaction is going to lead, and you learn so much from them. I mean, one of the biggest things I'd ever say to anybody is, they're interviewing you for a job, you're interviewing them for your career. That's what this is. The bigger part of the interview is you interviewing them. My pet hate was people not going prepared to ask specific questions that they wanted answering, because you're just about to dedicate more time to that employer than ever to your family or friends.
Or going prepared to ask questions that have absolutely nothing to do with where you are right now in the process. You know what? You don't need to ask the minutia of what kind of chair am I going to have at my desk until you get the job. At the interview, you need to be asking questions that are going to help you decide whether or not you're going to accept this job if it's offered. And those are the only questions that matter. Everything else happens down the road. And I hate, man, when you're in that interview and people just like, well, when you use the such and so tools, do you also employ the, like, who are you? Like, when you work here, let's have a conversation about that. But until then, friend, I feel like you have missed the point of this dialogue. Like, just back it up.
You've got to work with human psychology, and sadly we want to judge things very quickly. That's how we process things. And if you give them,
how many managers have you and I worked with over the years that were like, I make up my mind in the first 30 seconds of an interview, I can tell if they're good or not. And you and I know, have both been like, no, friends. In 30 seconds, you know if you like their outfit, if they smell nice, and if you find them in some way attractive. That is what you know in 30 seconds.
The first 30 seconds is 100% primal. There is no conscious process going on at the moment. And so people are just taking on that information that you've given them in the first 30 seconds. They make that decision. Do they smell nice? Do they look nice? Do they fit with my expectations? And then after that, then they start to build something else about you. But it's a label that they're going to build about you. We've been on the other end when you've recruited. It's like, how do you remember all of those 10 names and everything about them? You go, no, I remember the tall one who wore that jacket. I remember the one who told me that funny story about their mum. That's what people remember. They remember.
Was she the one with the weird eyebrows? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's just human psychology. Is it right? No. Would we like to be treated differently? Of course. Is it going to happen? No, because you've probably got about 45 minutes with one person who might never meet you again. Nobody's that interested. People get to know you when you get the job. So all you're there to do is shine like a diamond, give them the information they need to know that ticks their sheets, and make them wanting more. That's it. You've got to leave making them want more from you, whether that be more of the work you can do, or they just really, really want to get to know more about you because you sound interesting.
Yeah, all of this is, of course, why I am on a one-woman crusade to end interviewing, because it's stupid and doesn't work. But in the meantime, until you and I get to rewrite the world as we see fit, I think people have to just, own up and accept that that's where we're at. So bringing it back to you and your lack of interviews ever again in your life, as long as you live, except this kind of interview.
What's going to happen? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is the fun kind, right? You get to swear, you can wear sweatpants, nobody cares. How in the midst of a pandemic and all of the political drama on both sides of the pond, how do you build a successful business for people who are thinking about, what, these ladies have the right end of it, screw it, I'm striking out on my own? How does it happen? How do you build the business? What do you do? Where do you start? What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, I was very much in a business where I saw people face to face every single day. That was my business. The second we went into lockdown, that had to close down overnight. That's just where I was at. I had two options. You either give up and you go, right, I'm going to be unemployed for however long this lasts, or you have to adapt. And I ended up adapting. The skill set is what matters behind anybody. It's not the job or the job title, it's the skill set. And can you use that skill set somewhere else? Now, for me, I was lucky enough that my skill set predominantly has been training. And suddenly, if I was being forced to stay at home all the time, then so was everybody else. And by that meant all of those, one of the biggest clients I have is big colleges all over the country, because they would normally have offered all of this training in a classroom environment, especially for their staff. Now they can't. And now they have to care about their staff and their staff mental health more than ever. So I started offering mental health training for CPD for tutors and lecturers, and also for managers in colleges, so they can manage their staff and that the staff could manage the learners. So I spent my entire summer just taking all of that knowledge, all of that skills that I would normally work one-to-one, creating packages and giving it to people who were stuck at home, having to Zoom every day. It's just about adapting. When we're in a job, and especially if we stay in a job for a very long time, we can start to believe that we're not good enough for anything else. And actually, your journey, your history is unique to you. And all of the things that you've learned along the way are unique to you. If you bundle them up into a different looking package, you can start up on your own, you can go elsewhere. Other employers were still hiring during the pandemic because they had to do exactly what I was doing, which is adjust and a change strategy. So it is a mindset shift. And it's understand, okay, if I'm having to change, who else is changing, and how can I match up with those people? They're my new people.
So that is a great, 30,000 square foot answer. But down in the practicality, micro steps, because I know that you over the years have had to bring me back to okay, that's a great idea, Michele. Now, how the heck are we going to make that a thing? How do you make that a thing? How did you make going from working for a corporate entity into having a successful self-run business a thing? What was step 1, step 9, not, necessarily step by step, but bigger level of those? What did you do?
Step 1, obviously for me, step 1 was retrain. And I don't just mean retrain to become a psychotherapist. I mean retrain to understand about business planning, marketing, networking. Actually, where are the people that I would want to be working with? Where do they sit? Marketing has been the biggest learning experience for me. Now, I started my business whilst I was still working for someone else. So all of that downtime, and I know as busy parents, you don't have a lot of it. So I would use, so it was pre-pandemic. So beforehand, if I was on a train, I would be using that time to plan stuff, build, make connections. It is crucial. Use LinkedIn, join online networks. You just need to get known. Even if you haven't got your business up and running properly yet, get on a network, talk to those people about your skill set and your specialisms. Your business exists the second you exist, telling people about what you can do. That's the second the business exists. Then you'll just start getting talked about, and it grows and grows and grows from there. A lot of the clients that I get coming now are people that I met 2 to 3 years ago, that I just met on some random network one day when I was rubbish at networking. I'm the worst networker in the world.
No, you're not.
I hate it. I hate every second of it. And but they remember you a few years later, and that's it. That's how I won my big college contracts. I went in with a different employer years ago, and then when I was talking to them about it another time, that's when they wanted me. So it really is about, it's about people. Everything's about people.
You know, and I
need to
think
put your people.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people I work with are executive clients who are looking for work, and man, executive job search is so completely different because there's not like, you know, on LinkedIn an ad for CEO wanted, but you have to be out there in the market and known as a thing. And so much of it is a personal brand and being known as an expert in that field. And I think that everything you just said is so applicable to that. Like that is probably the question I get asked most in my career coaching sessions is, okay, well, how do I create that? And the answer is you have to just be there. You have to be everywhere that is being talked about, that when somebody Googles your name, when somebody looks up this thing, that you're just ubiquitously there for whatever it is that you are trying to position yourself as being the expert on. And that takes a lot of work. Like I know there are executive branding companies out there that like, that's what they do is they just spam the internet with executive stuff on those things because it is super time consuming and it takes a lot of time and effort. But yeah, I think that people forget that, you know, when you're exactly what you said, that the moment you exist, that your company exists when you're selling yourself like that for a small business. And I think that it's also applicable to probably anybody at different levels, but especially the more senior you go, the higher the expectation that you have an established brand in that area. So, I mean, other than LinkedIn, where do you network these days?
So LinkedIn, and I'm not on LinkedIn as much as I was. I joined a lot of online networks. So we've got one in the UK that's expanding over to the States, actually called Move, which is a very good concept. It's this concept that you do your standard network where you do your 60-second pitch. But then what you do is there's this almost this advice and guidance section where other people ask for help, and then you've got the opportunity to help them during that session. So what you actually do is you end up building relationships with people. So for me, the networks that are crucial are the ones where you build relationships. When I did that and I started going to these networks, what I was then doing is offering free webinars that explained what I do. Yeah. And then anybody who's in networking will come to the webinar because it's another opportunity for them to network. So as long as there's always different people wanting to network, you utilize the networking and they then become a bigger and bigger audience. One of the best advice I was ever given when it comes to networking is you can give the blurb, but you need the one sentence that people remind, it's very quick to remind you of. And somebody just said to me, Kim, just start calling yourself, I'm Mental Health Kim. That's it. That's all you need to say. Because the next time people say, I need somebody to help me with mental health, someone will go, think about Mental Health Kim. So that's what I was doing in networking. I don't talk about stress and anxiety and depression because I don't need to. What I need people to know is if I'm struggling, there's someone who can help me. That's all I needed people to know. The detail comes from consultations. So it's know who you are, know what you're offering. Do not fall into the comparison trap. That is the big one. It is very easy to look at Tom, Dick and Harry who are doing something similar to you and think, oh my God, yeah, but their Facebook page is so much better and their LinkedIn is so much better.
That's a valid way to spend hours agonizing, Kim. Absolutely. As a small business owner in a really crowded market.
The reality of it is they're not you, and people buy into people. So Tom might be brilliant for 3 different clients, but you're going to be good for a different 3 clients. So stay in your lane. Stay strong and close to what you want to achieve. Don't fall into that, because I did. I fell into that trap, and you go, oh my
I think
God,
everybody does.
You got to go, no, this is my voice, this is my message, this is what I'm doing, and stay on it, because no one else can do it like you can.
I want to piggyback off something you said about like nobody is right for all the clients out there. I think that's something that your work and my work have a lot in common. Like as a career coach, I am not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, I know that's a newsflash to you because you've always thought I was such a perfect delight and incomparable human being, really. I think that's what you've called me in reviews in the past.
Some of the called you in the past.
So, but I'm not like and I own that and I'm perfectly fine with it. Like, and I think that that is anytime somebody approaches me about coaching, I'm like, look, friend, I'm here to coach. I'm a really good coach for the right people. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about your idea. And I'm going to use the words that I use. And if that's something that's not going to mesh well with you, if that's something that you're going to have a hard time engaging with, then I'm not going to be offended. You just need to find someone else. And one of the things that I get asked a lot is, oh my God, is that offensive? Like, do people find that weird? And I'm sure that people feel the same way, even more so about therapy. Like, I've had therapy in my life and I've had to fire therapists and be like, hey, this is not working for me and I have to go find somebody that it is going to work with.
Yeah.
How would you like, I want you to just kind of speak to that, like the personal level of needing to engage. How do you know if you found somebody who's a good choice, and how would you want somebody to handle it if you're not a good choice?
No, so for me, I always have a free consultation. Everybody gets their free consultation. And that's not even for me, because I know that a client, from my perspective, isn't going to really open up honestly and authentically to me until about session 3. So the consultations are never for me. They are for the client. They are for that client to get to know if they think I might be the right person. I always check in with them at session 3 to say, right, how do you feel this is going? Are you comfortable with this? Does it work for you? And if it isn't, that's fine. My approach might not be right, but let me help you find someone who is going to be more beneficial for you. And I've done that for plenty of people. I've done that at a consultation, because I can hear quite quickly in a consultation if my style won't suit somebody. And I'd be wasting their money and their time. And if they're already feeling really low, time is something we don't want to waste. So it's just being really honest. And accepting yourself. You can't please everybody. You can't be everybody else's cup of tea. And really, it's not about you. So from both of us, we're in the perspective of, we provide a service to a person, and it's a service that will change their life. It has to be right for them. This isn't about me. It's about the client. And if I'm not the right person, go forth and conquer your life with the right person. And I'll go and work with this person over here and help them do the same.
I so love that idea of being able to refer to other people. I get really frustrated. I think that in the pure mental health end, like, there's a lot more of that camaraderie and less, at least from an outsider's perspective, it looks like there's less competition and more like, hey, we need to help people heal. In my space, there's a lot more competition. And so I think that I know that there are a lot of career coaches out there that will say, I can help anyone. No, you can't. Don't be dumb. And so like, it's really frustrating to me that I don't have like a network of coaches that I can be like, hey friend, I'm not your cup of tea, and that's cool. Here are 3 of my colleagues, and here's like the differences between them about why they might be better or worse for you, and then trust that like the reciprocal would go the other way. So I am envious of you getting to be able to do that.
But on the other side of it, the other option is, if somebody doesn't know what they're looking for from a therapist or for a coach, then they don't know if they have it when they're actually starting the process. And maybe that's where you can help someone. When they know you're not the right person, great, you know I'm not. Do you know the reasons why I'm not? That gives you some idea of what the opposite to that looks like. So you can actually help them then prepare for a better person.
And that's what I do now. But it's just like, it would be so great to be like, oh, let me turn to my giant Rolodex of fabulous people. I'm like, oh, you would like soft and fluffy. Great. Oh, Jeremy is soft and fluffy. May I recommend you call Jeremy? Because Lord knows if you want soft and fluffy as a coach, you do not want me.
No, God, no, please, no. But I think there's...
pretend for like 5 minutes at a time. Being a mother has taught me things, Kim. You don't know.
How not to sleep, clearly. But I think the world of therapy is quite snobby. It's very snobby. It's very snobby depending on where you trained, which model you align yourself with. We do have purists and we have non-purists, and then we have them. It's all very... There is those pockets of people where you go, and then there's those people who trained only to work in the NHS, and so they're from the NHS, so they obviously see more than anybody else because they're the NHS. So
Yeah.
you've got to find your people, you've got to find your peers, your professional peers.
I think what for me is the most frustrating on this side of the pond, and I think it probably translates, is that there's like a secret code of mental health providers. So like, oh, I am trained in the blah, 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 blah style. If you're looking for that, I mean, I don't fucking know. Like, I know that I'm struggling and I want somebody to help me stop struggling. I don't care or know at the outset enough about your different shades of gray to know which one is going to be the one that's right for me. And I just like, I would love to see like a real talk kind of description, like, hey, I'm like that kind of bossy friend of yours, except that I also have training to be able to help you get well, or whatever it is, right? Like just some kind of a real talk. Here's who this is. Here's what working with me is going to look like. And God, that would just make everybody's life so much easier. Because I know, like, for my husband and I both, when we were getting our therapists, because everybody has a therapist in the pandemic this time around, it was like, I don't even know what these acronyms mean. And I'm a fairly educated human.
Yeah.
I don't know if I care about those. That looks to me like some kind of a Myers-Briggs situation. ENTP. I don't like those. Like, so yeah.
Well,
And
this is the situation. The problem that we've got is we're in a culture where it's a classist culture. Mm-hmm. So we're in a situation where the more qualifications you've got, the better you are as a person. That's this big assumption. The only person in the world, there's two people in the world that care about your qualification, you and the person made money out of you getting it. That is it. They're the two people who really care about your qualification. The only other people who use your qualifications are employers who are using them to sieve you out against somebody else. After that, that's it. Because really what matters there, you could be the most intelligent person with all the letters after your name in the world, but if you can't put any of that wonderful theory, any of that wonderful education into practice and do what you need to do, it's just a waste of paper. You might as well burn it. So I think it's really important when you're working in the one-to-one field that you work in, it really is important that that person understands, what type of person do I work well with? What am I trying to achieve? And what is the best type of person for that? And now somebody might say, actually, I'm a really nervous person, so I need someone who's really fluffy and can go at a really slow pace. Yep. Peachy, they're not going to come to you. And that's good, because you'd pull your own hair out. It would be
yeah. Like, I don't want to give bad advice. I have had a couple of clients over the years that signed up for a coaching session, and we were not a good match. And man, that was a long damn hour. Like, oh. And what it has taught me is that I am not interested in having that hour again. Like, if I am not the person for you, if you don't really need coaching is not therapy. So like, I get really frustrated with like these organizations that are like, buy a coaching package. How the hell do you know that they need 5? Like, if they have one question that they need help being coached through, that's an hour, my friend. Job done, move on. Like, I don't sell any of that stuff, because I don't want you coming to me and wasting an hour of both of our lives because you bought a 5-session package. Like, no. Like, if this is about, you want some kind of like a 20% discount, great, let's talk about that. But don't make me sit through the damn hour as well. So yeah, I agree. I also just kind of like on a general, I want the world to be more real talky at this point. Like, I just feel like we should all be done with the bullshit. I've decided that like on resumes, instead of like career highlights, I just want to relabel that section as top 5 reasons to interview me. Like, I just want all of just why. We have so much information that we're being bombarded with all of the time from 9,000 different sources. All of us are trying to do more things than we've ever tried to do before at any given day. I get so frustrated at us being mired down in this antiquated and, as you said, classist language that we couch so much stuff in. And I just, very frustrated.
It is so real. I can see this, but it is true. And the reality of it is no one really knows if somebody can do the job until they're doing the job. That's why we have a probation period. The whole point and the problem that we've got with probation periods is nobody wants to be horrible to someone who's been in the business for 3 months or 6 months and isn't working the way they said they were going to work. but that's what they haven't met the obligation of their contract. Yeah. That's what it is. It's contractual. And I think a lot of people don't use these elements, these wonderful elements of employment to actually benefit the business, but benefit you as an individual as well. It's a get out of jail clause. That's what that is.
Well, and I think going with that, there's a stigma, right? Like they don't want, because they know, oh, you were let go at the end of your probation. Obviously, now there's going to be a stigma with the next employer. And that is part of what they don't want to do. They feel like they're setting you up to have a harder time finding work or what have you. And so I think that's the other thing that as employers, we have to get over. The fact that you got let go, you weren't a good fit at ABC Corp has zero to do with whether or not that person is going to be a fantastic fit at XYZ Corp. And so like you have to stop worrying about somebody's experience at another company as an employee, rather than, you know, what are they bringing to you and are they going to be a good match there? And like, again, we're talking about things that are ingrained and generational, and like, it's a huge change to want to bring about. But I just think it is so necessary, because until we change that, right, then hiring manager Bob doesn't want to let sweet little Susie go at the end of her probation, because he's like, but then she's got a termination on her record and then nobody will hire her. Oh, sad for Susie. And I'm just like, oh, but if everybody was just honest, then everybody would have a termination or 5 and it wouldn't matter. It would all be so much easier.
Yeah. And it would also, I think, you'd probably get a bit more serious. People would behave very differently in probation if they thought probation was taken seriously. That's the other thing. I mean, a lot of people think they've won the golden ticket because they got the job. The job is just the door's been opened. That's all the job is welcome. You can come into the building. The rest of it is actually where the real hard work has to take place. And I'd say to anybody, the first 6 months in a new job are hard. Go in prepared, go into plan, know what you're wanting to achieve in that 6 months, and know what mark you want to make within that 6 months. Because to be very honest, that's what most people are going to remember you for. You might achieve all of these great things afterwards, but they'll remember, oh God, do you remember when they came in and hit the ground running? That's what they remember.
So obviously you and I should be put in charge of the whole world, and then everything would run much more smoothly. I feel like if you and I could agree on it, then obviously it would be the perfect solution. I feel like we've known.
It feels like it could really happen now, huh?
I do. It does. It does. You've written a book about changing the world. Talk to me about the book that you have coming out and how it's going to change the world.
It is. It's called 8 Wise Ways for a Healthier, Happier Mind. It is basically creating the manual of how to live your life and protect your long-term mental health and physical health in 8 simple steps.
Well, that's fantastic. Are there fabulous food, a vast collection of ridiculous scarves, and the occasional tipple involved? Because if not, I feel like it is not authentic in any way.
There are mentions of some of those things.
Excellent.
Be rude not to.
Would be, again, not your authentic self if all of that is not somehow.
There is a lot of authenticity in it, because I do talk about my own journey to why I came to all of this in the first place. There's a lot of stuff in it, but the whole point, very similar to you, is life's hard. Life's bloody hard. Wouldn't it be great if there was just a simple way to live your life and let all the crap happen, let it all come at you, but actually you go, it doesn't matter. I feel like I can handle this because I've got my process that I handle things with. And I know it's a healthy process. I know it's going to work for me mentally. It's going to work for me physically. And I know I'm going to get some really good long-term happiness and health out of it. That's all we really want. When we think about what are we really here for? Is it because we want the flash car? No. Big house? No. Is it because we want to have the best job in the world? No. On our deathbeds, we just turn around and said, did I have a good life? Did I have a good life? And you don't want that deathbed to be young. You want it to be old. You want to be as old as you can possibly be. And you want to be able to have all your brain functioning so you can have hold of all of those fabulous memories of all of those life experiences you've had. That's why looking after your mental health is so crucial, because if you look after your mental health, you'll look after your physical health. If you can at least keep hold of your wonderful mind for as long as you can, what an amazing life you can live. That's ultimately what it's all about.
So we are out of time. In fact, probably a little over time. But Is there anything we haven't covered that you feel essential to cover at this point in the podcast?
Essential, no. Only I suppose the most important thing is, if you are struggling, if you are at a crossroads with anything, whether it be with your career, whether it be with regards to where your life is going, go and get help from someone who isn't stuck in the bubble with you. Because it's not like you need a savior. You just need someone to help guide you back out of it and set you back on the path that you want to go on to. Don't be scared to ask for help. That's the ultimate thing. No matter what the issue might be, get the help.
If you are listening to this and you have decided that Kim Rutherford or Kim Dalton, whichever one, is the smartest person you've heard in a while, and that you can't wait to hear more about her, we will have all of the links to all of the ways to get in touch with her, including her radio show that's coming out, and her book, and her website, and all of the things. So thank you so much for joining me today, Kim. You are always a delight, and you always crack me up. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye. You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michele Olivier, and hey, I want your job.